I think I'm in love. The problem is, I can't remember her name. You'd think by 78, I'd be past this kind of thing. But here I am, sitting in the dining hall of my new home, a cozy retirement community in Texas, completely, utterly captivated by a woman I'm convinced I know. She's sitting by the window, bathed in golden afternoon light, stirring her tea with slow, deliberate motions. There's a calmness about her, a quiet elegance. And those eyes, soft, knowing, as if she's carrying 1,000 stories within them. And yet, I don't remember her name. Now, before you jump to conclusions, no, I haven't completely lost my marbles. My memory's not what it used to be, sure. I sometimes forget where I put my glasses, only to find them on my face. Or walk into a room and stand there, wondering why I'm there in the first place. But this is different. It's like recognizing an old song, but forgetting the lyrics. Like a word stuck on the tip of your tongue. Henry, a voice snaps me out of my trance. It's George, my best friend here. 82 years old, a retired school principal, and a man who somehow manages to be both wise and completely full of nonsense at the same time. You've been staring at that woman for the last 5 minutes. Either go talk to her, or at least wipe the drool off your chin, he says, jabbing his fork in my direction. I glare at him. I do not drool. Right. And I still have a full head of hair. He pats his completely bald head. I sigh. I know her, George. I just don't know how. Then why don't you ask her? I shake my head. Because what if I'm wrong? What if she's just someone's cousin's aunt's neighbor, and I've built this whole thing up in my head? George smirks. Or what if she's the love of your life, and you're wasting time sitting here with an old man instead of finding out? I scoff, but his words linger. Just then, the woman looks up. Our eyes meet, and she smiles. Not a polite smile, not the kind you give a stranger. This is different, warm, familiar. And just like that, my heart does something it hasn't done in years. It skips a beat. I decide to take George's advice, sort of. Instead of walking up to her like a normal person, I start gathering intel. The Margaret investigation, I call it. Yes, that's right. I found out her name. Margaret. I overheard someone call her that at breakfast. So that's one mystery solved. But it still doesn't explain why I feel like I know her. First, I try asking around. Margaret? Says Ethel, the knitting queen of the common area. Oh, she's been here for years. Lovely woman. You should talk to her. Margaret? Frank, our poker night host, raises an eyebrow. Why are you asking me? She's right over there. Just go talk to her. Completely useless. So plan B, direct contact. I find her sitting on a bench in the garden, reading a book. The Texas sun filters through the trees, casting a golden glow over everything. Mind if I sit? I ask. She looks up and smiles. Henry, you don't have to ask. You've sat next to me plenty of times before. I freeze. I have. I try to laugh it off. Well, if I have, I must have been very charming. She chuckles, closing her book. Oh, you were? Still are, in fact. There it is again, that strange pull like a puzzle piece trying to snap into place. We sit in comfortable silence for a moment before I clear my throat. Margaret, have we met before? She tilts her head, considering me. What do you think? A tricky question. If I say no, I look like a fool. If I say yes, I still look like a fool because I can't back it up. I think I should know the answer to that. She smiles, but there's something knowing in her eyes, something patient. Then maybe you just need a little more time. She pats my hand gently before standing up and walking away, leaving me with more questions than answers. And suddenly it happens, like a whisper in my mind. The way she touched my hand, the way she said my name, I've felt that before. I've heard my name in her voice before. But when? And how could I have forgotten? I can't let it go. Margaret's words replay in my head over and over. You've sat next to me plenty of times before. She knew. She knew something I didn't. That night, I can't sleep. My mind keeps drifting back to the way she said my name, the way she touched my hand, the way she looked at me like I was someone important to her. And the worst part, I believe her. I believe that I should know her. But my memory, damn thing, refuses to cooperate. So at nearly midnight, I shuffle out of bed, grab my robe, and make my way to the library. The retirement home keeps old photo albums, records of events and gatherings over the years. I don't know what I'm looking for, but my gut tells me that the answer is somewhere in these pages. I flick on the dim reading light and start going through the albums. The pages are thick with age, filled with faces I don't recognize. Until suddenly, I do. A black and white photograph from the 1960s. A young woman in a floral dress, her hair styled in soft curls, standing beside a tall man with a confident smile. I inhale sharply. The man is me. I clutch the edges of the album, my fingers trembling. I was young once. Handsome even. But that's not what stops me. It's the way I'm looking at her. Like she was my whole world. Like she was everything. And then it hits me like a freight train. Margaret. I loved her. We weren't just acquaintances. We weren't just old friends. We were in love. A sharp pang twists in my chest. I flip through the pages frantically, searching for more. And then I see it, another photo. A dance. My arms wrapped around her, her head resting against my chest. We were happy. So why don't I remember any of it? Find what you were looking for. I nearly jump out of my skin. I turn around, and there she is. Margaret, standing in the doorway, watching me. Her expression is unreadable, but her eyes, they hold so much. Affection, amusement, maybe even a hint of sadness. I open my mouth, but no words come out. I glance back at the photo, then at her. It's you, I whisper. She nods. It's me. I shake my head, still trying to process it. But how, why? She steps closer, resting a gentle hand on the album. Henry, we were in love once. A long time ago. My throat tightens. Then why don't I remember? Her smile is soft. Because life had different plans for us. And because time isn't always kind. I clutch the album, my fingers gripping the edges. Did we get married? She hesitates, then shakes her head. No. We were engaged, though. Until she stops, as if the words are too heavy. Until we lost each other. My breath catches. Lost each other? She nods slowly. Your family moved. You promised you'd write. And you did for a while. But then, the letters stopped. I don't know if mine got lost or if yours did, but one day they just stopped coming. A dull ache spreads through my chest. I try to remember. Try to force my mind to bring back something, anything. But it's like grasping at smoke. I waited for you, she says softly. For years I waited. And then a life went on. A lump forms in my throat. I stare at the picture. At the boy I used to be. At the love I once had, but somehow let slip through my fingers. And for the first time in a long, long while, I feel the weight of everything I've forgotten. The next morning, I find Margaret sitting on the same bench in the garden, just like before. Sunlight filters through the trees, casting golden hues over everything. She looks up when she sees me, smiling as if she already knows what I'm going to say. I sit beside her, clearing my throat. So, I found the picture. She chuckles. I figured you would. You kept it. She nods. Of course I did. I never forgot you, Henry. The weight of her words settles over me, warm and heartbreaking all at once. I wish I could say the same. Margaret reaches for my hand, squeezing it gently. You remembered me in your own way. Maybe not with names or dates, but your heart knew. That's why you were drawn to me. I look down at our hands, hers soft and warm, fitting perfectly in mine. Do you ever think about what could have been? I ask. She smiles wistfully. I used to. But I've learned that what could have been isn't nearly as important as what still can be. I stare at her, at this woman who has loved me across decades, who has been patient with time itself, waiting for me to find my way back to her. I don't want to waste another moment. Margaret, I say, my voice steady, would you go on a date with me? She laughs, her eyes twinkling. A date? Yes. Like the good old days. I'll even attempt to be charming. She pretends to consider. Well, I suppose I can't say no to that. I grin. Good. Because I'm taking you dancing. She raises an eyebrow. Henry, the last time you danced, you nearly threw your back out. True, I admit. But if I fall, at least I know you'll catch me. Margaret shakes her head, laughing softly. All right then, dancing it is. I lift her hand and press a kiss to her knuckles. It's a date, and for the first time in a long, long while, I feel like the young man in that photo again. Not because of the past, but because of the future. Because love, real love, doesn't fade. It just waits. And sometimes, if you're lucky enough, it finds you again.